Hi, I'm Luke Hindmarsh.
And I'm Damien Humphreys
We are,
in Deep Crit.
today, we're taking a dive off the high board into the pit of crit to come at you from a completely different angle from some of the other videos we've done. No, this isn't going to be us dancing or singing, thank goodness. But we want to talk about some, should we say, more complicated role-playing related issues. Something that we both have a feel for, to some extent, from our individual backgrounds. So myself as a writer and Damien as an actor. And it is the what sounds like a complicated topic, is probably quite complicated, bathos in tabletop role-playing games. And you may have a better grasp of what the word means than us, or you may be thinking, what are they on about? I think our definition is sort of either the use of humour, the absurd, or the trivial during play, during storytelling in some way. Is that?
Yeah, and that then creating an anticlimax or a drop in mood or a drop in the tension of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, well, I guess we'll get onto it, but we're not saying that humour is not okay, but it's when it's
Yes.
used in that moment, at that pivotal moment when's the right time to use humour, and can humour derail a game session
Yeah.
or even a
Or
whole campaign?
lose you. So, I mean, one of the things that we will talk about at some point is how to develop tension. And one of the things I always would say about tension is you sometimes need to dial it back a little bit, because if it's just full on tension all the time, and bathos, so a drop in the mood, a return to the trivial or the absurd, something that makes everyone laugh, can be a brilliant way of doing that. But if it's mistimed, it can completely break the mood.
Yeah.
We could go through some examples in media, film and TV and books and such, but that probably isn't very useful, because tabletop role-playing is different. It's much more, it's ad-libbing, it's organic, it's happening on the fly. So maybe if we look at this from the way that a DM or GM could use bathos versus the way players could use bathos, and which is not good or bad, but which we think might have an effect of having the bigger effect, larger effect on what play feels like. So the GM or DM using bathos. Should I put you on the hot spot first of all, Damien?
Okay.
Turn up the temperature on you first before I get roasted about it.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, the great theatre director and theoretician Peter Brook, once said, "To be too serious is to not be serious at all." So, like you said, that I think tension needs a dialing back. You can't come in at 100% and keep it going, because that's not sustainable, and it just gets boring. It just turns into one note, and one note of anything is never very interesting.
Right.
So I think as a GM, it's kind of it's beholden. There's a trust there that the players are trusting me to tell a story, and they're trusting me to engage them and to keep them involved in this story. And if I were to suddenly break that with an absurdity or something trivial, or getting to the great denouement of a session or a story arc or something, and there's the final fight with the big bad, and he's that final thrust is driven in by the party's heroic fighter, and I then break that with some silly one-liner from the big bad, or that Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie death scene of or he farts or something as he dies. If I was to break that
Yes.
immersion, then I've done a disservice to that fight, to that session, possibly to that whole campaign.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you can't put humour in and put humorous characters in. But it's I mean, where would you kind of?
So again, let's use a SciFi example, because I may be slightly more. So I came up with, when we were talking about this before we decided to talk about this on camera, and I'm not sure how far we got talking all about it off camera, but I came up with the scenario of, say the ship that you're on orbiting some black hole it's in this situation where you've defeated or seem to have defeated all the aliens that are invading, but there's a problem because the drive is going to self-destruct and you've got 30 seconds, and you get to the main computer and you're just programming it to say, hey, whoa, hold up, and it pauses the countdown to destruction at 10 seconds to say, and this self-destruct mode is brought to you by X company offering you timeshare on a moon of Saturn. It might, in the right campaign, be brilliant and work and be quite funny. Perhaps if there was a Red Dwarf role-playing game, it would work. But we've talked about Alien. We've talked about the fact that we've had a Traveller campaign. If I do that as the GM when you're at your maximum level of tension that I have tried to build up all this time, that's a dial down at the wrong moment. And I'm not sure it's a betrayal of your expectations, but it does almost feel like I'm mocking my players, which can't be the right thing, can it?
Yeah, I agree, and it can make a mockery of a whole situation, but you can, I guess, what is my campaign about? Is my campaign a serious campaign with light-hearted moments, or I could run a really silly campaign? I've got some ideas, which I've discussed with Luke, which are all top secret for now. Like a really silly campaign, which is cool because that's the expectation for that game, and it's almost like kind of, if halfway through the Lord of the Rings it turned into some kind of farcical comedy. It's that jarring of genres. That jarring of emotions and moods that's just going to mess up a lot of hard work on the part of everybody.
Gandalf saying, "You shall not pass," just at the man, and the Balrog pulling out its bus pass and saying, "What?"
Yeah.
or the Gandalf swooping in on the eagle and it finding out it's run out of fuel.
Or the eagle turning around and going, "That'll be a tenner, please, Gov."
Yeah, something. Or not you again. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, so if you had, say you're talking about the campaign which is meant to be a little, I don't mean it in a negative sense, a little bit silly. It's meant to be humorous, it's not meant to be serious, it's meant to have these ridiculous characters, ridiculous situations, which can be perfectly fine and a great deal of fun. There you wouldn't be silly non-stop all the time, because that would have exactly that. It's a balance, isn't it, between
it'd be a different note, but it would still be one note.
Yeah, and it would be a bum note, as it were.
Yeah,
when you want to yeah.
Yeah, and it would just fall apart. And I guess another thing, like with this whole concept. So a friend of mine has started running a new campaign with a group that we've been playing together for quite a while now. And I'm playing a female gnome bard who's she's a bit silly. She's a bit flighty. She wants to make friends with everybody. She's very, I've got a voice and I've got a demeanor with her, and but actually there's a serious side to her underneath. This part of my kind of character for that is that the silliness is the fact she's never been taken seriously, so she plays on that, but actually there's a real serious heart underneath. But I have to be careful as a player to not derail serious moments in that game. We've only had one session of it so far, but if I were to be silly all the time and to make those jokes and to prat about in all the really serious moments, I might as well not be there. I might as well call my DM a certain word that I can't use on YouTube, because I'm not invested in that process and in that game. And I'm not saying don't have fun with characters, because I love to have fun with characters. I play serious characters, I play silly characters, I play characters with like the worst accents that wander all over Eastern Europe and its environs, and never settle down anywhere.
End up in France.
End up in France somehow. They usually end up back in France with a bit of German thrown in for good measure. Do all that, but don't do it so that you derail the game for everybody else.
I think so. We're moving on to talk about players and this idea of bathos. So the absurd or the trivial. It's a bit like as a player, like I suddenly want to talk about the fact that we're in the tavern and this serious scene has happened, and my players had a bit to drink, and I want to go to the Jakes. I want to go to the toilet. In other words, really, dude? I mean, okay, maybe. All right, fair enough. We have to get trivial and banal and basic about that.
Scatological, yeah.
Scatological, right? I mean, maybe it's not, maybe it's the reduction of things to an absurd level. And I think as a GM, for a GM or DM to force it is wrong. For it to occur deliberately, in the sense of it happens because I need to lower the tension, so I need to come back to a trivial, can work. So a day-to-day example, you're playing a modern horror game, but the car runs out of fuel because, or you've got a punctured tire. It's trivial, but it's a problem that doesn't matter, but it just eases off the tension in a different way, whilst raising it in another sense, anchoring a certain reality. That can work. Having a quip that's silly, as you say, I don't think that works. As a player, what's your responsibility? I think players and GMs and DMs, however you want to call it, whatever you are, storyteller, referee, whatever. Player, if you're a player, if a DM is a player, they're just in a different role, and the responsibility of everyone at the table is to try to have everyone else at the table enjoying themselves. Doesn't mean you sit and suffer and don't enjoy yourself. Everyone should be having fun. If no one is taking it seriously and everyone's cool with that, great. But as you say, with your known character, she probably wants to be taken seriously. So if that campaign devolved into all the players just not taking anything seriously, I mean, if I were running that, I'm moderately serious as a DM. I tend to try and construct serious situations, not necessarily a narrative, but I give serious consequences. Everything has a consequence, and it's usually not a fart joke as a consequence. And I, as a player, I try to return the same thing, but breaks. I mean, the amount we laugh around the table is a lot.
Absolutely. We have those moments that are kind of out of character as well. We have those interactions between us as a group of friends.
Yeah.
But we also have in character laughs and light moments. And I don't. Does this fit on the subject or not? But one thing as a fellow player that will take me out of immersion. I think this is what we're talking about. We're talking about immersion. We're talking about immersion in whatever setting, whatever storyline you're in.
Well, I suppose Bathos can break or make.
Yeah.
So humour, absurdity, triviality can make or break immersion. So yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that will take me out of that really quite quickly is pop culture references.
Oh God, yeah. Okay.
If I'm playing, let's go nail on the head, playing a swashbuckler rogue and fighting away with an enemy, and if I start going, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya," and bringing that reference in, which is a great reference, and is a reference to one of the best movies ever made.
Yes, and a great book.
But that immediately, I'm out of immersion. I'm out of that game world, and I'm back in. Sitting in front of a computer or sitting around a table with a load of mates. I'm not immersed. Character names. Coming up with a character name is really difficult, and I've purloined. I've used names from fiction, from historical fiction. I have a character in Luke's Traveller campaign. Whose name fits him absolutely perfectly, but he's actually...
It does.
His name is from a real-life person.
Yeah.
Anyway, but,
Not a real-life person who could sue you.
Not a real-life person who could or would want to sue me.
No, quite, yeah.
But it's not, I haven't called myself, Corporal Hicks, for example.
See, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that would it be amusing? So say we're going to play. I'm about to run the Alien Destroyer of Worlds scenario.
Already.
Yes, indeed, you are. You love the core too much, unfortunately. But so there's a temptation within that to use all the quotes from the films, particularly all of Bill Paxton, the late great Bill Paxton's one-liners in that are fantastic, absolutely awesome. But overdo it. Do it maybe at the start. Yeah, cool, great. Do it during play, and it can just ruin it. And I think that alluding to it, paraphrasing a touch of something that hints at something someone said, like having a character saying, I love the core, that isn't too much. But starting on about it being the farm references and all of that. I mean, we've got to be careful because we're on YouTube, so I can't quote wholesale from it. But just regurgitating things that don't fit with what you're actually talking about saying, just because you've remembered the quote and you just want to try and shoehorn it in. That's awful. If it comes up naturally, great. Maybe that's the secret. If Bathos is organic in play.
I mean, this is a really interesting subject for me. We could go on, I think, for ages, and go off on many, many tangents, I feel. But no, I think, there you go. If it's organic, if it flows from the moment, and it's not forced, and then it's not forced to continue after that. So a joke that may come up in the moment, or just a little aside, a little comic aside that happens in the moment,
or an absurd action, a pratfall that just because it's inadvertently humorous rather than.
Shakespeare was the genius for this, right?
Yeah.
Writing these comic relief characters, but also having comic relief built into some really serious moments.
And I think if you also look at real life high pressure jobs where it's life on the line, you'll find a lot of gallows humour.
Yeah.
And that can work, but that's not really. Is that Bathos? So this is the thing. Defining it. For a tabletop role-playing game, are we going too far by going on about this heavy topic? But I think in terms of making you better, so our idea of making ourselves better, GMs, DMs, players, the whole lot is about a feel for the fact that absurdity, triviality, and humour, and they're not all the same thing, but they sort of fall under this umbrella term, can be used to enhance your play, or they can be used to rob it of immersion, rob it of that. Something that you get on those sessions that you will remember, where actually role playing is almost an art form, and it can. I mean, I'm not trying to be pretentious about it. What I mean is that you can walk away going, "That was such a great session! Wow, I'm mind blown." But Bathos at the wrong point could ruin that.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. So there we go.
What have we been talking about?
What are we talking about?
We don't know.
Do you agree? Is this something you'd like more of? This type of discussion, this philosophical discussion about role playing, or do you just want to shut up and roll the dice?
Or do you want us to just shut up and stop grappling with things that maybe are a bit too complicated? I mean, it isn't a simple subject, I don't think.
But either way, let us know in the comments. Do you have any examples of a game being ruined by a moment of absurdity, or made by a moment of absurdity? That particular one moment where actually that was the crowning moment to that session, to that adventure. Leave comments as usual. And this is us going to go and ponder some more philosophical questions.
Yes, we've got to do the tin thing, haven't we? The Rodin image.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
And we're going to do some more great thinking and speak to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks very much. Bye bye.